You may be seated. This sermon is for the hurting. This is a sermon for the soul sick. This is a sermon for those who rage. The overturning of Roe versus Wade hurts the mind, hurts the soul, brings out despair, brings out rage. Not necessarily for everyone here or in the same way or amount. We are a large congregation. We do have diverse beliefs and ideas about public policy. And I am here to love and support all of you, no matter what you believe or who you are. But while I understand and honor all the feelings and recognize that they may differ, this sermon is for the people who are raging right now. And I say, rage. Rage. What profit is there? What profit is there in my blood if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will the dust declare your faithfulness? Psalm 30 is full of hurt and despair and rage, right at God. We can rage at God. And the decision by SCOTUS is worthy of rage. 5 men, 1 woman, just dismissed the very real, historically known harm that their decision will have on living women, living children. And they just ignored all that in favor of a very dry, technical, legal argument about states' rights. Their decision is devoid of care for the harm and the bleeding and the death and the lifelong suffering that this decision will cause. And so it's a decision that ignores people, that ignores you, that ignores your soul, your value, the God-given worth and dignity of you and all women and all people, of all humans, that God fervently loves and calls us to love. It says you're not valued. At your core, you're not valued for how God made you, for how you are. And that's not true. But it takes a huge bite out of your soul to hear it. It says you're not trusted. God trusts all of us, or we wouldn't have been given the ability to make these decisions. But 6 people just said they don't trust you. That said your government doesn't trust you. You are not trustworthy. And that's not true. But it takes a huge bite out of your soul to hear it. So rage, cry. Our faith tells you that's okay, that's good for your soul. Where is God, though? In all this, asleep at the switch? We can rage at God, we're allowed to do that, but terror lurks in the way that God's will isn't written clearly for everyone to read in the same way. The psalm cries out, "You hid your face, and I was filled with fear." We have many reasons to fear, not just for the direct effects of this decision, but for its implications, which some of the justices made crystal clear are now on the table. Not just women fear, poor people fear, people of color fear, LGBTQI plus people fear. There's a lot of reasons to fear for a lot of people. I don't know what God thinks or how God acts in the world. It would be arrogant of me to claim I did. But I will say this. I do not believe that God wills suffering for anyone for any reason. So those who are celebrating this decision are wrong if they believe that they know that God was behind this decision. And for the same reason, the suffering, those who are upset, need not conclude that God has some greater purpose in this, that God has left the building, or God's doing something to use it for a greater good. Or that God is, like I said, asleep at the switch, has abandoned God's women, God's children, God, everyone, to nothing other than pointless suffering and rage. In faith, I believe that God wills only love and goodness for all, especially the ones that are ignored or devalued or not trusted by society, the same ones that Jesus said would be rejected and the ones Jesus loved the most. Still, that faith, just having faith, cannot overcome justified fear and rage right now. The Psalms have often made me angry, and with time, it's taken a lot of time. I've come to pray them, though, with more and more fervor. The Psalms make me angry because they are often so simplistic and untrue in light of the facts of what happens in the world. They say things, they make statements about God making things right, or always fixing things, or always triumphing over evil that we don't see so often. The author of Psalm 30 makes these things, says these things with such a self-assured manner. I mean, he's a real mansplainer. He says, give thanks for the remembrance of God's holiness, the remembrance. Really? Really? I'm supposed to ignore the injustice and hurt and suffering that's right in my face and praise God for something done long ago in the past? I'm supposed to praise God for something done in a distant land in the distant past? That's not usually what we think of as motivation for praise. We usually want to praise something that's being done now. Give thanks for past goodness. What about the suffering now? What about the coming suffering? What about the suffering of the people I love right now? What about the injustice we see today and almost every day? How about some justice now? Who cares about remembering justice from the past? Who cares about the memory of past good in the face of present suffering? But memory is powerful. The memory of injustice gives us strength, especially when the memory is fresh. The memory of defeat can turn to determination. It can turn to determination for us to keep up the fight in the face of loss. Our faith is focused on memory actually for a very good reason, for many reasons. We remember the good, the triumphs of justice, the resurrection, and we remember the bad, the cross, the deadly combination of religion and political power that killed Jesus and is still very much alive today. Both of these memories can give us strength. Memory of the violence and injustice of the cross can turn rage into determined action with time. With time. The memory of the empty tomb can turn despair into hope that we need for long-term action. With time. With time. We don't have to accept every single theological point of every single psalm. There's a diverse range of theological viewpoints in the Bible, and we have never been required to pick just one. Psalms are less about how the world is and more about how the world should be, proclaiming what should be as if it were. Psalms are about the solace that comes from that. Psalms are about the solace that we can get from trusting in God's promises. And we will eventually find solace in remembering God's ultimate goodness, God's ultimate triumph, triumph shown once and for all and forever in the resurrection, triumph that we savor and see right here at this table. The solace may be a long time in coming. I don't expect anyone to find it right now. Instead, I pray the Psalms. I pray them. Pray them with fervor. Not because they're always comforting, but because I hope that by repeating their words over and over and over, I'll gain some of the faith of the authors of those Psalms. Faith's not a switch that we turn on and then magically all of our rage and hurt and fear just disappear. Doesn't work like that. True faith is shaken all the time. True faith is shaken because the world is not the source of our faith. To the raging, to the hurting, to the afraid who are here right now, I tell you to rage and to hurt and to fear. And I'll still be here after this service. And this parish will be here after this service. And we will all be here after this service. And we'll be here tomorrow. And we'll be here next week. And in the difficult weeks to come and the difficult years to come, we will be here for you and for everyone. And we will keep proclaiming the truths of our faith. And the justices of the Supreme Court are not God. God trusts you. God gives you dignity and value. Dignity and value do not come from a legal decision. They are God-given and cannot be taken away.